Hail, my brothers! I bring to you, this day, a recount of the uncrowned princes, the Emperor's firstborn sons, his original angels of death. In the time before the galaxy was torn asunder by warlords corrupted by chaos, and before the Great Crusade sought to unite humanity, Terra, the cradle of humankind and the birthplace of the God Emperor, stood shrouded in darkness. In the ancient days of old night, Terra lay in ruins, bearing the scars of unending conflict. From savage barbarian tribes to the techno warlords of Terra, the planet was a battleground. It was during this tumultuous time that a figure, more than just a mere mortal, rose to prominence: the Emperor. But even such a being would need warriors strong enough to retake Terra from the pathetic rabble that wished to rule the homeworld of the human race. Among the first genetically engineered warriors to be rolled out by the enigmatic warlord were the Thunder Warriors. These early genetically enhanced soldiers were unstable, unruly, but they served a purpose. Being the first to enter the fields of battle upon Terra, they would win the young Imperium necessary resources. Some of those hard-won prizes would forward one of the Emperor's most ambitious projects, the forging of his Space Marines, his Angels of Death. But even in those long days of unification, it was difficult to make even a few of these warriors who would win back the galaxy for the Imperium. Even so, 5 of the firstborn sons of Terra's strongest were taken to his gene forges and implanted with the seed of the First Legion. They would become his firstborn, his original Angels of Death, and unto them he gave a name: the Uncrowned Princes.
We were the mold from which the other Legiones Astartes came, the base template from which they were adapted. Some of them might in time come to embody certain aspects of warfare more wholly than we did. But even their specialism was rooted in our ability. We who were once uncrowned princes, we who were the Emperor's original Angels of Death, we who became the Dark Angels.
Entering the service of the Emperor, these newly made soldiers of mankind would face their first compliance at the Third Siege of Antioch in 603.M30. The Brothers of the Legion would only number 30 Marines strong, spread across hosts that would later become the Hexagrammaton. But even with just 30 stalwart brothers, they would show the defenders of Antioch what the rest of the galaxy would come to fear. They would end all resistance posed by it and its defenders, taking it in the name of the Imperium. Even the battle doctrines they used would later form a book, the so-called Principalia Bellicosa. By the midpoint of the Wars of Unification, those unrefined warriors of thunder would be shown up by their younger compatriots, the Uncrowned Princes, who were not only superior in their genetic stability, but in both discipline and battle doctrine. Numbering 10,000 battle brothers by this time, our battle-tested cousins would come to develop a so-called arrogance that I find unbefitting of Astartes. Even so, it was a product of their effectiveness on the battlefield and the myriad of laurels won in the name of the Emperor. I digress, so that I might not besmirch our honor-bound cousins. Soon after reaching 10,000 Marines, the Legion would receive word that the King of Akkad would oppose armies sent against his dust-bound borders of the Upper Asiatic Basin of Terra, wielding beasts of men with blood that was akin to poison, and gene enhanced to be stronger than 10 men of the line. His warriors would face off and be found wanting by the First Legion and its allies. For 10 hours they fought, and in 10 they broke. The man who would become the Grand Master of the Uncrowned Princes took the head of Akkad, Hector Thrain. He and his legion would be lauded by the princes of Terra, and he alone was gifted the title of Sinestra of the Emperor, or in High Gothic, the left hand of the Emperor, his most fearsome instrument of conquest. After this battle had ended, they, as the later Legion would rend and destroy all the things that marked Akkad's kingdom and rule. and all the horrors faced in battle, even going as far as to destroy the stone and earth used in the making of his fortresses. This destruction and martial butchery would set in motion the First Legion's first step on the path of destruction of their foes. Seeing combat during the battles of Fortress 31 and the Battle of Carcharodon, they alone would face the most horrific and deplorable beasts and Xenos that the armies of the Emperor faced during Terra's unification, for even then his original angels would leave no trace of such things, not even a shredded data, not even a single cell of such abominable creatures. To eradicate such things, the Emperor entrusted them with weapons that even their cousin Astartes could not and would not ever possess. Using these weapons to the fullest extent, Hector Thrain would sign the death warrant of half of the eastern reaches of Holy Terra during the purge of the Crave infestations, and many innocents would die in the gene phage bombardments. This would forever stain the honor of Hector and the battle brothers who deployed such abominable weapons in the name of the Emperor. This event alone would mark the first as synonymous with death, for wherever they went into battle, death inevitably followed in their wake. In somber recognition of this reality, the brothers of the First embraced the hollow skull of death itself as a part of their armor. This choice set them apart from the Emperor's other servants, and stood as a proud symbol for their duty to the Legion. To their human allies, it came as a warning and an ill omen, for many of the Imperial regiments attached to them feared that the specter of death that they cast across the battlefield would also loom over those who fought alongside them. For they would not be wrong in this thought. Many of the forces that fought with them would disappear or outright vanish, understanding the perspectives and superstitions of their human allies. Even still, the First saw their embodiment of death as a sacrifice to those same mortals whom they fought to protect against the manifestations of absolute and grotesque horror that assailed them. Those younger legions who only now started on the path the uncrowned princes built before them saw such ideas as hubris. Even our progenitor, the Imperial Fists, ever pragmatic in their ways, saw our older cousins as arrogant and vainglorious. Such comments and opinions would be disregarded by the masters of the First, for even though the younger legions won victories in the name of the young Imperium, their laurels were in turn considered mundane in comparison to the victories of the uncrowned princes. With this being said, I would like to talk about their organization and the hosts that made the uncrowned princes such a formidable force on the battlefields of Terra, and what won them such renown and ire among their allies. I shall start with the oldest host within the records of the early Imperium, even if said records would be viewed as archaic by those outside the Adeptus Astartes, but that hardly matters. I bring you the host of crowns. These brothers who served within this order were the original core of the Legion, even in those days serving as champions and duelists in the lines of a multitude of different armies within the early Imperial formations. They were also adept in line breaking and holding the vanguard. And, ironically, much like us of the Black Templars, they would fight at the front, in one-on-one honor duels, acting as a symbol for the brothers and the men and women of the line that fought with them. Most within the host would be seen as icons of victory and martial skill, as much as they were seen as the Emperor's indomitable warriors. Now we move on to what became the true core of the Legion, the host of blades. As the Legion grew and rose in military skill, a new host would be born, comprised mainly of infantry cohorts serving as a bulwark against enemy assaults. The formidable gun lines they formed could repel any assault laid against them. Being organized into deep infantry columns and having a preeminence in skill in close order infantry tactics, they would set the tactical squad as a mainstay used by the other legions through their dogmatic efficiency. This host would be among the very first to lend their hard-learned battle expertise to the Principalia Bellicosa. The knowledge they gave would form its first few volumes.
Now, all but relegated to the realm of forgotten legend among most people, we had the Host of Pentacles. This long-forgotten host holds a significant place within the history of the Legions, being the first endeavor to integrate Psyker witches into the military forces of the Imperium. The princes sought to harness the destructive power of these mind witches to combat the enemies of mankind. Truly a grave mistake in my eyes, as well as those brothers who fought alongside them. They would face an equal number of victories and defeats, and in the end, it was disbanded by the Grand Master of the Uncrowned Princes. Now, like many orders of the Unification Wars, it is seen as a discarded relic, just as the Librarius was discarded by our venerable chapter. I must turn my attention to the Host of Iron. Originating from the resilient nomads of the Cyrillic tribes on Old Terra, they adapted ancient traditions to the modern battlefield, becoming experts in the use of armored vehicles in warfare. They transitioned from the cumbersome gun crawlers of Old Earth's pre-Unity armies to the sophisticated war engines tailored for the Emperor's Legiones Astartes. Alike to the later Raven Guard, the Host of Fire would be known for its clandestine nature. Comprised of a cadre of spies and assassins and other operatives essential to the art of war, this host served as the Legion's keen eyes and a ruthless left hand on the battlefield, employing infiltrators and solitary sentinels as their vanguards and remaining as the final force to shed blood. The interrogator councils of this host were renowned for their formidable skills and instilled widespread fear. Such tactics would be used by both the Raven Guard and Night Lords. This alone is a testament to how effective this host is and its brothers were. The Host of Bone, also known as the Scandic Host, earned its moniker due to its savage and bloodthirsty tactics, much like those of the World Eaters. Much of its primary source of warriors being from some of the most brutal tribes on Old Terra. This formidable force did not simply aim to break the ranks of its enemies, but rather to utterly shatter their morale. They relentlessly sought out and exploited any vulnerabilities, renowned for their unparalleled ferocity. They disregarded the conventions of civilized warfare and employed the most ruthless weapons and strategies on the battlefield. Their goal was not merely victory, but the complete annihilation of their foes. The hard and steadfast warriors of the Host of Stone consisted of experts in the static arts of war, specializing in siege tactics and the destruction of fortifications, much like the Iron Warriors and their expertise in siege warfare. The solemn and resolute demeanor of these warriors played a crucial role in some of the most arduous defenses and brutal assaults during the early years of the Great Crusade. To the adepts of the Hosts of Stone, all warfare was a matter of unwavering determination. Those who refused to yield to the enemy, standing steadfast in the face of imminent destruction, would ultimately achieve victory, while those who faltered would swiftly be overcome. The swift and flexible warriors of the Hosts of Wind, they moved with the swiftness of a storm rolling across the battlefield. Experts in the use of light armor and jet bikes, they are a true precursor to the White Scars. Well versed in the use of swift assault troops, they use shock warfare more than any other among the hosts. The Host of Wind enjoyed a reputation as one of the most glorious in the First Legion, though it also bore one of the highest tallies of the dead for its reckless valor. The Host of Void represents one of the final and most significant forces to arise within the First Legion. The adept practitioners of the Void specialized in the art of teleportation assaults from low orbit, demonstrating a mastery in warfare within the celestial realm. This distinguished group consisted of shock assault infantry equipped with teleportation displacement beacons, boarding assault cadres, and skilled aircraft pilots. Now, my brothers, you know what made them formidable and disciplined as a legion, but you must now know of their eventual downfall before their inevitable rebirth.
Under the leadership of the Emperor, the Legion was comprised of dignified heroes who held great roles of honor, such as Gilgamesh and Heracles. These names carried the power of legend, and those who invoked them were well aware of their significance. However, despite their noble glories, the light they cast eventually waned.
As the first of the legions to leave Terra, they were granted a fleet by the Emperor and dispatched into the darkness of the void. They ventured out into the Oort Cloud, while the other legions found their footing and organized into forces similar to what they would later become. The first princes of the legions faced the unnumbered and unremembered Xenos species, which preyed upon the scattered remnants of humanity in the fringes of the Sol system. The dwarf planets and rogue moons that drifted in the icebound darkness became the only remaining testaments of a multitude of now extinct Xenos species. All that remained of them is dust upon the ground of these frozen funeral pyres. After the scouring of the Oort Cloud, they split into different fleets and expeditions, wandering the galaxy in search of foes that threatened the burgeoning Imperium. They found a worthy foe at Advex Moors, against which the Legion fought valiantly, eventually destroying it and its war moons. However, their expectations for the rest of the Great Crusade were too high. Their innumerable human allies were not told of the specifics of their deeds, of the myriad of implacable enemies they had exterminated, because not a single one of their allies had known. Their deeds and victories went untold and unsung. Soon the brothers of the uncrowned princes would fall into the shadow, as their younger cousins stepped into the light under the guidance of their newly found Primarchs. They began to feel forgotten, but soon they would find the lion and retake the glory and victories that rightfully belonged to the Emperor's firstborn sons. The return of the Primarch Lionel Johnson to the Legion will have to come another time, for in turn, it brings a new breath of life into the Legion, and the old ways with which they won glory and victory would be chiseled into something new by the venerable Primarch. My brothers and serfs of the chapter, I know I sound a bit funky and weird in this. I will admit I'm a little bit rusty, but I hope that this Vox transmission finds you in good spirits and that you enjoyed it. As I mentioned earlier, I will soon announce the long-awaited return of the Primarch Lionel Johnson. However, duty calls, and we find ourselves on the brink of war. Idle chatter will not secure victory in such times. Before I depart you, I urge you to consider joining our battle barge. We are in need of reinforcements, and your support would be invaluable. If you found this transmission informative or entertaining, I kindly ask that you like and subscribe to my channel. Additionally, feel free to explore my other Vox transmissions. Your participation is crucial, and I hope to see you again.